Hello and happy Cinco de Mayo to everyone watching on our One Soccer YouTube channel. We have a very special show for you today. I want to welcome all our footy fans, but also our hockey fans for watching today's One Soccer Hangouts. I'm your host, Asa Raymond, joined by Adam Jenkins, Oliver Platts, and the Columbus Bluejackets goaltending development coach. He also was the goaltending coach for the Buffalo Sabres, but he started his professional sports career playing soccer in Canada. Jim Corsi, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, we want to know how you're keeping up with isolation these days, how you're holding up, how you're doing.
Well, I'm doing okay. I mean, like everyone, it happened quite abruptly. I was on my way for a trip, and our organization was ahead of the curve. They had already sent a missive to us to not fly anywhere, and if we had to drive, take care with the driving. And then I was on my way to I think to watch some I think it's under 18 kids, because I'm development coach for all our goaltenders in our organization. My alter ego as goalie coach, which I've been passionate about. I work with our minor league affiliate in Cleveland and our kids that are playing there, and I also scout goaltenders all over the world looking to fill in the blank. So I got these three hats going at the same time, and so it kind of ended up abruptly. But fortunately, I was home, so we hunkered down. It was still winter here in Montreal. Watched the snow melt, and I've been home for the month of April. And for the last almost 25 years, I've been on the road, away from home. So I know it's tough. Everybody's it's difficult. I mean, just going out for a liter of milk can be a challenge. But I'm home, so I'm kind of lucky. It's a bit of a bonus, but of course, understandably, everyone is suffering.
Yeah, well, we're happy that you're healthy and at home. We have a lot to get to today. Your name obviously synonymous with analytics and the Corsi ratings. We'll touch on that. Your soccer career as well. And if you have any questions, anyone watching on our One Soccer YouTube channel, feel free to fire away. We'll try to get to them with our guest, Jim Corsi. Adam, I know you're anxiously waiting for all the seasons to start, so I'll let you ask this next question to Jim.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Jim, in your experience, and even just your insight, what it might be like, because when we talk about return to play, regardless of the sports, all the pro sports, NHL certainly no exception. For us specifically, the Canadian Premier League and some of our other properties, likely when we get back to competition, it's going to be in front of empty stadiums. So there's going to be players, and then depending on where you are, could be 30, 40, 50,000 seats, 20,000 seats in the NHL, then it's just empty. What does that do you think, psychologically, for players to not have that atmosphere, sort of taking away the home ice advantage? And do you have any experience playing in front of no fans?
Well, when I first went to Italy, a couple of the teams I played for, the rinks were empty. So it was a big change. I was at the Edmonton Oilers and the Minnesota North Stars, and we had been playoff bound with the Stars and whatnot. And then I went and played in Italy, and I think friends and family were a lot, and that was it. But I think you hit on something right there. The empty rink, the advantage of having the roar of the home crowd, and the oppression of the home crowd for the opposing team, it can have an effect. The players are now, if you take a look at the rinks now, you go to the rinks and they're by and large almost all the same. And the fans really make the difference. But without the fans, there'll be an emotional alternative to how the players stay on top of things. So the reality is, though, that they're professional and they play right through the end. And without the roar of the crowd, it might. You know what, we've often said how the crowd is the fifth line, and the crowd is that extra support. It could be worth one more goal. All the classic lines and all the cliches that might be taken out of the equation to win a game. But at the same time, it's a highly competitive league at the NHL level, and it can be a problem. But I don't see it being that much of a problem.
We're going to take a little trip down memory lane now, Jim. You played in 1973 with a touring Olympic side for Team Canada, playing soccer, that is. Do you have any memories of that time, Jim?
Yes, a lot. I mean, for me, it was first of all, it was a remarkable experience.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think it was how the tour started. I think we were, I think in, I'm not sure, was in Belfast. We had an exhibition game against a team in Belfast, and I remember this was at the height of the nastiness that was going on, and the troubles, as they call them. We were driving down the middle of town, and all the side streets were gated off with chain link fence all the way down. You couldn't, you weren't allowed to park a car for longer than, if you had parked a car, there's someone had to stay in attendance, and it was quite an experience. But aside from that, it was like a world round tour. Like, we traveled all over Europe, and I think the most interesting of them all was my last exhibition game with Team Canada was in Malta. So you go play in Malta. It's a rock on the off the end of the Italy's toe and just north of Africa. And there we are. We go into the stadium, and you know what they had for grass?
What's that?
Gravel.
Played on
Gravel pitch.
Gravel pitch. Now, I'm
Street
sure
soccer.
that's been out there, and I'd heard about them, but I'd never played a national game on a gravel pit or a gravel pitch. So you can just imagine. Slide tackling was out. No slide tackling. Otherwise, you got a raspberry the size of. Anyway, that was, and then beyond that, it was the goaltender, Chersky, because I found it fascinating, because I was playing hockey as a goaltender, but as a forward or a mid. Well, I was a forward then, yeah. For me, it was always how to figure out how to score was also part of one of my philosophies that I teach goaltending today. Is if you want to be a better goaltender, you got to think like a player so that you understand what you're up against. And what I thought was quite interesting about Chersky, he wasn't that tall. I think he was like 5'9", 5'10". And now, of course, I didn't know. The guy had a standing leap. He could almost jump over the bar at 8 feet high. But he was he was like a coil in there. He was that good. But beyond that, I found that he was really special with regards to how he could play and not being that good. In fact, to this day, I have a very good friend of mine, Wally Smith, who played a little in Europe, played a little bit with Team Canada. I'm not sure if it was with Team Canada or with our B team, but Wally is a good friend of mine, and he too is about 5'10". So remarkable. That for me was special.
Yeah, I was going to mention Tony Chesky. Obviously, was one of the more well-known players in that squad, and there was Jimmy Douglas and Sam Lenarduzzi, who a lot of Canadian soccer fans will remember. I know you've had a fantastic career in hockey, so I'm sure you don't have regrets. But do you ever think back, what if I'd stuck with soccer and had a career in that sport instead?
Well, it's kind of a tough call, because you got to remember the Pro League of North America was the NASL. I mean, there were a couple of great experiences I had. I mean, I played in a Yankee Stadium against New York. I had the wonderful experience of playing overseas with the national team. The fact of the matter is that the Canadian kid was playing soccer. My dad was an Italian, and he had played a little bit here and there in Italy. And my uncle was he was in the lineup for Lazio, but not the first team. But there's a heritage of soccer in our family, and to have turned into hockey, my dad had no regrets, without a doubt. But the fact was that professionally, it was the team to play for because of the growth and the possibility of growth. For me, I'm blessed that I played soccer, because it really gave me an opportunity to use my legs, and it helped the way I played goal. You got to remember, at those times, there was no goalie coaching, and you just went in there and you stopped the puck. If you didn't, you got another guy. That was it.
Yeah, there's also a heritage of Montreal-born goaltenders of Italian descent. To yourself, Roberto Luongo, Roberto Romano. Was it as simple as a case of the Italian kid put him in net? Is that how it went down?
I don't know, but putting me in the same field with Roberto. Well, let's put it this way: a lot of good Italian kids, but I think that was just by happenstance. I think that's. No, nice. That's a good thought, but no, that didn't happen that way.
You mentioned being
a dual
sport. Yeah, you mentioned being a dual sport athlete, though. What are some of the things that you took from soccer and applied in hockey? And what are some of the things you use as a coach now that you take from soccer and apply with some of the
Well,
goaltending?
first of all, the game itself, and we've had these conversations even in our offices. I remember when I was with Buffalo, I'm telling Darcy, our GM, I said, Darcy, our game's becoming a lot more like soccer, or as my British friends would say, football. And the way we, the teams that aren't that good, catenaccio, they'll play a blocked up type of game. Try to get to the net. Try to see my face with all 11 players in your way, or 10. Goalies don't usually leave the other end. But and today, access to the net is so much more difficult, and so that part of the game is now coming into it. It is in our game. Guys are blocking pucks like guys will block a ball or congest the front of the net. We don't have the opportunity about elevating the puck, but even now, if you watch a game, when the congestion is in the middle, in the neutral zone or in the high end of your defensive zone, guys are flipping the puck over and above. Not unlike soccer, when it's congested, you want to switch sides or elevate the ball to get over the defense. And the constructive part, the midfielders used to be up and down, but now you get your fullbacks. They're running right up along the play and they're attacking. You take a look at today, what generates offense in our game is we're releasing or activating. They say activate the defenseman, and if he becomes a forward and your forward becomes the defending player, not a defenseman, but a defending player as he tries to cut the rink in half. There are a lot of similarities in the game. The subtlety, of course, is the buildup. In hockey, it's 1 pass, 2 passes, and it's a body check, and it looks like, oh man, stuff's happening by accident. But a lot of it is routed. I could go on all day about the commonalities, but you only have half an hour, so I'll let you get on to the next question.
No, it's interesting because there's things I think that soccer is kind of copied, or maybe not directly copied, but incidentally copied off of hockey as well. You see teams nowadays in soccer who will kind of deliberately play the ball deep, as hockey teams like to get pucks in deep, and then they'll go and chase after it, right, in the opponent's end. So there's all kinds of those similarities. It's pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, and they'll create like what we call a swarm defense. So you'll get guys. It won't be one-on-one. You'll see a ball goes on the outside, and you'll get your D-man and a forward jumping down. And in soccer, you'll get the D-man pushing you to the side, and then I don't know, maybe your midfielder or whoever's your second player, he'll come in irrespective of his position. The closest guy gets there, and they'll 2-on-1 the guy, and they'll create small area battles, and that's how you try to contain it, as opposed to playing your space and allowing things to develop and define your defense by denying the ball when it's in an area of being defended. So now you take the defense into an area where it's not as dangerous, and of course it becomes more congested, as I said. So the sports are really blending one with the other, and I think that's why I often encourage kids, if they're playing in the summer, I encourage them to play soccer as opposed to baseball or the traditional summer sports, as well as tennis. That's for goalies, Mike. It's another question.
Yeah, are you finding that more players are specializing in specific sports, especially hockey and goaltending in particular? I imagine that a lot of people are picking that at a young age and really focusing on that. And what sort of athletes is that creating?
Well, you're getting this. Part of the issue was that the Outlier book, the 10,000 hours of specific coaching, and it has been misinterpreted. I mean, if you give the 10,000 hours, you're going to have a guaranteed top flight guy. And what we're getting a lot of kids in my area that I'm seeing. A lot of young kids are coming up. They're very skilled. They've got a lot of abilities. They're technically very sound, and they look good getting scored on. But they can't stop the puck. I mean, but they look good. They have all the techniques. And what's gone is that we've lost a lot of the athleticism. And right now, it's really an important aspect of goaltending. Secondly, the ability to cope with the challenge. I mean, if I played soccer as a forward, I find that really a most valuable thing for my development as a goalie, because I look at what a goalie is trying to do and when I look at what it's trying to defend, and then I understand my limitations. So as a goaltender, I understand your limitations, it gives me an extremely valuable advantage to to defend not just the puck but the situation. So I have an opportunity to understand, well, he's the puck carrier or he's the ball carrier. Where's the other damage? Where is that danger going to come from? If I don't understand the game, well, I'm just saying, where's the ball going to go, or where's the puck going to be?
Well, you have one of the
Then you
most
can understand the
athletic.
game.
You have one of the most athletic goaltenders. Ended up being a Hall of Famer, Dominik Hasek. How much? How much of a soccer background did he have, and was that relatable for you?
Well,
Did
he
you
came from
bring that
Europe,
up?
right? So, he ended up growing up playing a lot of soccer, but he was really a really good tennis player. His brother, on the other hand, was a pro soccer player, and I think he had a cup of coffee with the national team as well.
Wow.
So, but in Dom's case, Dom brought skill and athleticism and combined them, and it often looked like he didn't. Oh, it just looks like by happenstance, but no. He did that stuff, and he did it on purpose. It is what I started to believe and understand, that athleticism was a new and valuable quality in the skill set. And that's the thing, where you have some good soccer players. They're terrific with the ball. They have great footwork. They have movement. They can escape. They have opportunities to play, but they can't find the next play. They can't find the next player who to give it to or where to go. But individually, they have the skill, but they can't play with the group. And so it's valuable. And when you get into trouble, the coping skills and the athleticism is what gets you out of them, or it allows you to at least to continue to play. That's the real commonality between both sports for me.
And Jim, I wanted to follow too, something we haven't touched on before, but a lot of people in your position who have cups of coffee, as you say, or incredible experience in multiple sports, is the development of vision. And I think for you, certainly for a goaltender in hockey, vision is pretty important. But when you're working with these young kids, and as much as you may encourage or wish that they had tried different sports to develop that all-around game, how are you teaching a young person to expand that vision? When is it just a repetition and practice thing, or are there different ways that you can sort of get them to broaden their horizons figuratively and literally?
Well, read books on philosophy. No, no. The reality is, we try to encourage them. What I've done over the years is I've tried to encourage them to watch the game from the player's perspective. Don't watch the goalie. Watch the player's perspective. And with video, what I've done is, with video, I've had them in a room, and we're talking about a variety of things. And as opposed to talking about goaltending, I asked them, okay, this guy has the puck. Where do you think the next play is?
Yeah.
And so what the reality, when you talk about vision, we talk about vision, okay, guys like Gretzky and Hasek and Crosby, the great athletes, the Platinis, the midfielders, especially in soccer, they have what they call vision. But a lot of these guys, they see the game in slow motion.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that the game is slow, but for lack of a better term, the metaphor of it being in slow motion is that they see everything in real time, but can understand where things are going to be. I remember when we were with Gretz. Gretz was highly criticized because he couldn't pass. He would pass the puck like a soccer player. He'd pass it to space, and people couldn't figure that out. And then, someone would come and pick it up, and lucky, the guy came to pick it up. But no, that wasn't the case,
He was one step ahead.
Yeah. So the vision of the game is, you try to get the young goaltenders, especially, most often through video. Sometimes watching games, if they're the backup, to watch the game through the eyes of the forwards, see what they're doing, what is the opportunity, and ask them, post game or the next day, did you see this play? What opportunities did he have? As opposed to saying, right, you as a goalie, what would you have done? Yeah. Just turn the table so that they see the game through a different set of eyes. That's why like I often said, try to encourage young kids to play a different sport. And I have to say that it's not easy, especially like we said earlier on, the 10,000 hours and the narrow effort. And it's all well-meaning, and it is, but it's invaluable, I think, as a lesson to understand that the sport is still sport.
Jim, before we get to analytics and a few rapid-fire questions, we talked about you playing soccer in the 70s in Canada. You played hockey in Italy in the 80s. And in both countries, in Canada, hockey is king, and in Italy, soccer obviously is the main sport. I just want to know how those two experiences compare for you.
Well, the hockey in Canada, of course, it was quite central, but it wasn't. It wasn't, as I said earlier on in the show, it wasn't as primary.
Mhm.
Like I was there when I was there, and playing hockey. And like I said, we played to some rinks. It was empty, so I'm kind of used to playing the empty rinks. You learned how to play with
Yeah.
enthusiasm, but despite the nature of the stands. But like Sunday, the game was over, and they would it was highlights.
Yeah.
And Monday, it was interviews of how the game went and why the game didn't go. Tuesday, it was interviews and analytics and what went wrong, what went well, what do they plan for that. Wednesday was they actually had court cases, il processo, they'd be going over what's gone on, and then they start thinking about the game of, one game a week. So you had all this time and I'm going, oh, in hockey, it was like one game, one and done, and you had the paper
That's
in the
right.
next morning, and that's it. Move on. Multiple games doesn't allow you to address it that way. But in some regards, the hockey experience in Italy, as it is with most European games or leagues, there was a game on Wednesday and a game on Saturday and a day off on Sunday.
Wow.
What was that? Now, of course, in the NHL, it's 1 day a week. You have to give the players a day off. You have to.
Yeah.
It's by NHL Player Association. It's decreed. I think it's 1 a week and or 4 a month, something to that effect. But they've got it figured out. They were ahead of the game, mind you.
Right.
I think part of it was just because it was the nature
Yeah.
of the way things were in Europe.
All right, time for some rapid fire now. Hockey versus soccer. I want to know who you think had a better career, Dominik Hasek or Gigi Buffon?
Gee, that's a tough call.
We only ask the tough questions here, Jim.
Yeah. Well, I guess Gigi, because of the nature of all the great successes. But the distinction for me is Dominik Hasek reinvented the game.
Yeah.
He changed goaltending. Gigi was successful because of the game itself and the teams that he played for. But if Dom had played for Detroit for 5 years, he'd have won 5 Stanley Cups.
True.
But he changed the way goaltending is played. So I think he had a bigger impact on the game.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
You have to agree with that, Ollie. Adam?
Yes, I agree.
I think
I grew up a
Hasek was-
Stars fan, so when I think of Dominik Hasek, I'll always think of the '99 Stanley Cup winner.
He would be my greatest of all time in terms of hockey goalies, and Gigi is an all-time great, but I don't know if he stands alone the way Hasek does in my mind. So yeah, I'd give it to him.
And
Well
that's the hard part. Those are tough questions when people ask me that, like, who are your top guys? And I always say that if you look at the top guys of their era, okay, but I honestly believe that the guys that have had an impact on the way the game is played.
Yeah, he changed the game for sure.
Yeah.
Changed the game.
Yeah.
All right, here's another tough one for you then, Jim. Who has more pressure, a goalie in Montreal or a goalie in Milan?
AC Milan?
Yeah,
Or Inter Milan?
Or Inter. I guess either way. Just saying, for Milan, it'd be tough.
Oh, wow. I think the Montreal goalie, the Habs goaltender, would be a lot more pressure because of the nature of the way the game is played. I mean, you could have 2 great periods, and your team takes 3 3 penalties that maybe one gets by you, one gets deflected, and the other one you didn't see it. Next thing you know, it's 3-0. You've lost 2 periods mean nothing. In soccer in Italy and Milan, everyone is for sure under the microscope as well. But it's a little more. It's kind of a marathon the way that occurs. A goaltender can get 40 shots in a game and come out looking like roses. He can get 20 shots in a game and stink up the joint. In soccer, he may not even see a shot. So
yeah, no, it's the one that ran Patrick Roy out of town. I don't think you can compare to that.
Yeah,
I was there for that game. I was doing play-by-play with Pierre Hood. Pierre Hood, the famous RDS play-by-play guy, and Dick Irvin was doing CBC, and the guy who was supposed to do it was stuck in an airport, couldn't get to Montreal, and so our play-by-play guy was Pierre Hood, French-Canadian press play-by-play guy, and never done a game in English. And he's a terrific guy for Formula One, by the way, Pierre is. And I was up there, and I had my opera glasses, and I said, Pierre, something's happening on the bench. man, what? Qu'est-ce qui arrive? You know? I said, and of course, one of the things that Dick Urban had taught me is never talk badly about the home team, because people who want to listen to their home team will just turn it off and say goodbye. So I started talking about the other team. Well, this is not happening on the other bench. So and Patrick was going back and forth. And of course, the next day they traded for Jocelyn Thibault, who I coached his very last game with the Buffalo Sabres years later.
Wow.
As an aside.
Full circle. Wow.
Who's a fitter athlete then, Jim? Soccer player or hockey player?
At the high end? At the high end?
Yeah.
Right at the top end. Who's fitter?
They're all exceptional athletes. I played with both, and you know, to sort of say one is better than the other, exceptional. The only thing I would have to say is that if you saw soccer players and skating and who had never skated, it'd be kind of tough. Mind you, if you were to go in the in the rinks before the games, guys like to play juggle ball with their feet.
Keep it up.
Yeah, keep it up, that kind of thing. And some of the North American guys are wooden, but all in each way excellent and exceptional athletes, to each his own, really.
It's a harder tournament than winning the Stanley Cup, going through the Stanley Cup playoffs, or the Champions League in soccer.
The Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
I think the Stanley Cup, you can actually play 28 games virtually every second night. And you can almost play 28 games in 56 to 60 days with travel, and it's a physical game. Right. One of the things that bothered me about the game at home, or when I was in Italy at home, imagine, they'd play a cup game on Wednesday night, and then Sunday they would play and it looked lackluster. And then the coach, not just the players, the coach, they're feeling their legs. You know, they played on Wednesday and today their legs are a little heavy, and they're what?
Wow. Oh yeah, they still do. They still do.
And they still do. I know. I watch sometimes. They go, please, please. I remember. So I talked about Milan, and Berlusconi's organization buying the Milan team, and so they were first team in the league, and they're an expansion team. They weren't terribly good, but one of the kids gets cut. He gets a stick in the mouth. He gets cut here. Typical. Stitch it up, right back in the game. Well, their team doctor comes down. Oh, he's out for 10 days. He can't play. Oh, he's out for 10 days. And the player's going, get me out of here. I'm playing. Different mindset, But can you imagine a player coming out after, well, it's my second game in 3 days. I'm not sure if I can play. He'd be so.
You're right, though. It's just exceptionally different, the culture and the mentality behind it all, and the sports science as well. I mean, it's easy to compare apples and oranges that way, but yeah, you're right. It's mentality.
Adam, you said something there. The sports science, it has changed, and that's one of the reasons why there's that one day off, and they try to set more time for rest. It used to be if you're working them hard, you were coaching, as opposed to as I've often said, rest is a weapon, and in some regards, it's needed. Now, 2 games in a week.
Yeah. I'm actually still kind of surprised, especially as someone who comes from more of a soccer background, that Sidney Crosby plays 82 games and maybe doesn't get a few nights off in the way we've started to see some basketball players do. But yeah.
Well, you're seeing a little change in the way coaches will handle the players. What you don't see is they might play less ice.
Yeah.
They might play easier minutes, so that if it's a game where it looks like they're in control, he'll share the load on the lineup and then play them the whole time on the power play, where a power play is not as demanding. There's not as physicality. Remember, if you dump the puck in because the team's playing a trap or the 1-4 or whatever, you've got to go get the puck. So getting the puck means you've got to battle with the guy, and so once you battle with the guy, you got to come up with the puck and now make a play. And this is all done anaerobically. And now you're out of breath. So now you got a back check. No, you change. And so suddenly your minutes are changed. But there's the emotional quotient. I mean, in goaltenders, you really got to, we're starting to see more teams saying that your backup goalie should play about 20, 25 games. But not every team has the luxury of a guy being able to play that many games. Well, that's the difference.
All right, Jim, one last rapid fire question here. It comes from our YouTube chat. Flavio the Swede's asking if it's more difficult to be a goalie in soccer or hockey.
Hockey.
Why?
Short answer, rapid fire, hockey, big time. Why? Why? Because
Volume.
it's the nature of the game itself. I mean, everybody can score from everywhere. Just to give you an idea, 10 seconds, 5 seconds before the shot, and 5 seconds after the shot. Okay, so that's about 10 seconds for one shot, just the lead up and the post thing. Okay, and that was if every shot was individual, secondary. Okay, that's just it. So you have about a 30-shot game that comes to 300 seconds. That's 5 minutes. What are you doing for the other 55?
Mm-hmm.
You're getting strafed, you're getting run over, you're getting jostled, you're getting pushed. Your goaltender, the play is inside the blue line. Your goaltender isn't kind of standing there, well, let's see what happens here. And the stress is the same for a goaltender in soccer. But the physicality of it for a goaltender in hockey is way much more involved, way much more. And so the stress level is that you can get a long shot on net. That might be okay. But a shot from 30 feet or 50 feet, the way the guys shoot today, they're still coming at 100 plus miles an hour. And when it comes out that fast through a forest of legs, the puck looks like a pea.
Yeah. Right. Well, Jim, that leads us to our analytics portion of this chat, because I understand that the Corsi rating came to be because of something like this. Yeah. How did the Corsi rating come to be, Jim?
Well, it started off with our organization and
this is in Buffalo, right? Yeah.
And me saying that our goalies needed how come you're not going on the ice early? What's going on? Mental health day. I said they need a rest. They need some break. They need a break. Well, I only had 25 shots last night. Yeah, but 25 shots. There's a lot of stuff happening. Every play coming in, every action. As I just explained, the difference between your goaltender, the segue was right there.
Yeah,
and it's just a lot of stress. And goaltenders, they're ready. They're readying for a game the next day. They're not just okay. Your turn to play 5 minutes before the game. They're waiting. A goaltender's job anywhere is waiting for disaster. Where will the failure occur? Where will the excitement occur? So it's very emotional, straining. So I said, well, there's a lot of action. We didn't have heart rate monitors yet, so we couldn't see what kind of work was going on with the heart rate monitors. Where I got more stories about that too. But so I started counting the block shots and the missed shots, because the league had this information, and shots on goal. And invariably, a 25-shot game could amount to anywhere between 60 and 75 shots towards the goalie.
Yeah.
And you even see that in statistics now with soccer. There was 4 shots on goal and 9 shots, or 3 crosses and 2 wide shots, and that was the action for the day. But in a goaltender's case, so 75 shots where, and I also wanted to monitor entries. When the play comes into the zone, there's no different for a goaltender. When the ball starts to approach the 18-yard box, it's like, okay, what's going to happen? You're all tense. You're not kind of there. Oh yeah, nothing's going to happen here. Oh, yeah, we're good here. No, you're like as tight as a drum.
Yeah.
And so all that action was important. So I started to connect and collect all this data, and our GM and coach were quite impressed. And that's how it started. And when Darcy was talking about it on the radio, this fellow heard about it, and he turned around and said, well, why don't I apply that to players? And serendipity, the guy didn't know what name to give it. He was going to give it Buffalo name, Sabres, stat,
gear, rough.
And looking in at the time, there was still the paper media guide, and he was thumbing through it, and he saw my mustache. He said he liked my mustache, which I have shaven off.
We've noticed.
Yeah, I'm serious. So that's why I called it the Corsi stats. So serendipity was that, it started there. They developed it there, and analytics has taken a life of its own. But like I often tell people, remember, statistics are like a lamppost for a drunk. You can either use it to lean on or to illuminate. So handle with care.
Well,
I got to write that one down, Jim. Hang on just a second here.
There has been an explosion in not just in hockey, but in all sports, and how often these are used. How much has it changed your job from kind of the 90s to today, all the information that's available to you?
Well, it's really helped in trying to define what's going on. To quantify our game, especially difficult, considering that, you know, the analytics have come out and people are giving these statistics and the trends and trying to figure out what is actually going on. It's helped in trying to define what value your goaltender has, or what value your player has, what value your kind of plays have. It's gone down to that point. And it gives you an opportunity to objectively, I guess the word would be objectively define and inform people about what's going on. And I think what's changed is that, well, from years ago, let alone the 90s, but even before that, where it was just the plus minus. Like, you were on the ice when they scored, you got a minus. When you scored, you got a plus, and that was it. Now the players can get evaluated in a much more in-depth fashion. It's allowed more of a better playing field, and in a way, the ability to quantify and level the playing field. A guy like Crosby, who plays 20, 25 minutes, or PK Subban with Jersey, who play 30 minutes, he's going to have the bulk of the opportunity to get points and scoring and da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah. So how do you compare that to the next guy down? Well, I think it's really invaluable to compare athletes within your organization and outside the organization. But then again, it's you can't negate experience and the eye test. It should be used together.
Yeah, it's all information, right?
Yeah,
it's just
Jim.
I
was curious too, Jim, with your role specifically working development, because my family, we've billeted junior A hockey players before, and we had the Belleville Bulls in the town next door. And these kids, they want to do their best. They want to progress to the next level. Yeah. So any bit of information, media that's written about them, they absorb it. They want to know more. So how are you using this information to help these young prospects with the Monsters, and then making sure it's not inundating them or flooding them with stuff they don't need to know?
Well, that's hard with today's media and social technology.
Everyone has a blog now.
everybody and anybody is out there. There are no secrets. It's hard to define what's going on. The important thing that I try to do, and I encourage kids to do, is try to steer clear of of believing that the accolades are what you are all about, especially in your development. Because if you're really good at a junior A or a junior B or a major junior level, that's really good. But you can't just stay there. You have to believe that the arc of learning is harder and harder and more competitive. You're not up against a kid from Belleville or a kid from Boston. You're up against a kid who's playing in Latvia. Our goaltenders in Columbus, we have 2 Latvian kids and 2 Finns and a Canadian living in America. And we'll have a Russian coming in next year as well. I mean, it's like a minestrone. It's all kinds of, and so for a young guy, it's extremely important. Yeah, enjoy the accolades. It's really good. Hey, it's acknowledging what you've done, but it's about what you're going to do. And that's the real difficulty. We have a lot of kids that are in the American League, and it's hard. And the reason I like to say this, and it's important to know, it's really hard because it's easy to quit. It gets so challenging as you get closer and closer. I mean, it's like, to use a metaphor, from golf, let's say, and we'll stray away from football or from soccer. You take a lesson, you go from 100 to 90, you go, wow, every lesson I can take 10 strokes off my game. I should be down to 60 in another 3 or 4 days. Nah, it doesn't work that way. And the harder it is, the more difficult and slippery that slope is to believe that what you've done is really, really valuable. And I think it was Einstein, repeating the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is a sign of insanity. Yeah. But as a young kid, you have to be able to understand that you have to repeat and do it over and over, and then feel uncomfortable and try something different on top of that, and actually sometimes experience failure. And part of my development job is on the emotional side, to make sure that you nudge them out of that confidence or comfortable area without losing confidence or losing faith in their ability. Hey, you didn't get bad overnight. Don't worry about it. This is just new stuff. And the new stuff could be the simplest of things that can do and undo a young athlete at all levels. And this pertains to all sports.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't a
Well,
short answer, was it?
No, that was a good answer.
Great answer. Yeah.
Sorry.
Speaking of outside the box coaches, Blue Jackets head coach John Tortorella, one of the most recognizable coaches in any sport. So, wondering how you think you do as a soccer coach. And
Be great.
Yeah,
That guy he's great. I mean, the players. I mean, this year, if you look at our lineup over the year, sometimes it looked like we had our American League team playing in that organization.
Right.
Players play for him. Great
Yeah.
coaches, technicalities and the X's and O's aside, they want to play for the guy. They'll go through that. Like Torts is that kind of guy. You're in the room with him, you say, wow, we're going to war with this guy and we'll do it. To use a metaphor as war. But the fact is, that's what Torts really brings to the game. And to some extent, I was blessed to have some really good coaches like Lindy Ruff. Lindy was the very same. It didn't matter who was in your lineup. Those players knew that Torts is a guy that he's going to be an avenue to my success. And that really is what the belief is. And I'm fortunate that I'm working with him, or alongside with a lot of other great coaches in our organization. But that bleeds through the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the Corsi rating for a minute, one of the things that I find fascinating about it is that it came to be organically, and that's why I think it's so useful today. Because it was a tool for you, and then other people saw that it was useful as well. I think with a lot of analytics right now, they're trying to come up with something that will become popular. What's something in soccer that you think would be useful, a great metric that soccer coaches could use?
Well, I wouldn't know. I haven't given much thought about it, but I would hazard that I think they already have time on the ball, right? I think they have that already, right? How much time they have. And
Yeah.
I would think how much time they have the ball, how many goals does that generate, or how many shots on goal or attempts does that generate with the time that they have the ball? So, if you're trying to win games and you only keep the ball, but you don't generate any kind of offense, it's kind of tough to win games if you're just holding the ball and you're not going on the offense. Now, philosophically, you look at the way Italy would have played in their great days. The big thing was to keep the ball and wait for something to happen, or create something when the opportunity happened. Otherwise, you play to 0-0. I think sports, and considering that it's like soccer, like hockey, we have to encourage the use of metrics to sort of encourage a game where we are trying to win, not to play a game that I'm going to play, but try not to lose. That's safe. It's nice. It gives, to some extent, as I often say, coaches, teams, their success and coaches' success, the fans love you, win or tie. So, it's just, you try to create that situation. But if we are able to generate more offense, and I'm not saying that you have to score more goals. Like our game, we guys are blocking pucks and whatever, but the game is still generated at the net. And I think if we want to generate more excitement about, soccer is embedded in our DNA for the most part around the world. But to generate more offense, I think it would be a more interesting game. It's one of the reasons why I enjoy watching the Premier League. I like watching English soccer because the game is a lot more straight lined and at the net. There's a lot more at net game for the little that I remember and know from the little that I watch. I had a place when I was in Buffalo, the guy opened up a bar. It was a soccer bar. And that's all I would do. I'd finish games in the NHL. I'd come home and I'd have a beer after a game in his little soccer bar and watch games. But I think that's a number that might be of value. This is just
pretty good for not giving it any thought. It's well done. I think.
I think that's where things are kind of going. Is like trying to figure out the contribution of players who are maybe involved in creating chances but don't get the goal or the assist. Right, players who are further back in the move. But it's challenging because it's it's such a low scoring sport and a fluid sport to quantify all of that.
I think when you go at the goals for, goals against, that's a tough call. But I think somehow you can measure the generated attempt, as you can also measure, well, they don't have the ball. They have the ball quite a lot, but they're also getting a lot of attempts at their own net. In other words, when they do lose the ball, it's calamitous. So, and then you say, well, how much time you could start creating ratios of time versus time. Then you start realizing, well, how do we change this? By understanding the problem better, you're able to address the problem and create a solution. But here's me trying to talk coaching for.
We appreciate it.
But it's just the analytics, as we said. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Is there any final questions, guys?
No, had a good time though. It's been interesting.
Yeah,
I don't have enough short questions. I could go on forever, but for that sake, we've already had Jim for about 15 minutes of extra time, so I'll save them for another day, hopefully.
Good stuff.
Well,
Adam.
it was my pleasure, gentlemen. It really was. I enjoyed it, especially my two greatest loves in sport are soccer and hockey. And like I said earlier on, I do believe there are a lot of influences that both games are starting to mirror.
For sure.
No, we appreciate you coming on with us, Jim. All the best this season, whenever it gets going. I know we're anxiously awaiting the start of any sports. So wish you all the best. For Oliver Platts, Adam Jenkins, I'm Asa Raymond. More soccer on the One Soccer YouTube channel. Tonight, Gareth Wheeler going inside the game with CONCACAF President Victor Montagliani later tonight. That should be great as well. I want to encourage everyone to subscribe to our One Soccer YouTube channel. Till next time, Adam's back on the Hangout tomorrow. Have a good one. See ya.